Whether you choose Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, the cutscenes differ from who you choose. So you get a lot more cutscenes from Jill Valentine than Chris Redfield. So we all know our first encounter, our first zombie encounter. So after entering the mansion from the cannibal dogs, which are a nuisance to kill with, might add, much more worse than zombies. So I think we all remember our first encounter in the mansion when we find a random zombie chomping down on Kenneth. Is it Kenneth? Well, one of our teammates anyway. And there's actually two ways to see this cutscene. When he enters the dining room office, or dining room as we call it anyway. And you can only do it on Rebecca mostly. No, wait, Jill mostly, then Chris Redfield. If you're Jill, and then you realise that there's two scenarios, one where the zombie comes to the fireplace and you get Barry to deal with it, and the other scenario is where cutscene, so we call it, where it comes out onto the left side instead of going straight for the fireplace.
You! Freeze! Get away from him, Jill! He's insane!
There's two ways to go about this. You can go to the main doors to go to the main hall twice. So the first time you meet Wesker, and Wesker says something along the lines of,
Investigate, Jill.
Sure thing, Wesker.
like, he's doing a good job as it is, just sitting in there. He's our leader, I'm just saying he should be in there with us. But we all know he's training or testing us against the BLWs. Oh, and the second one is when you're trying to leave the room for the second time, and Barry will basically say you're not up for the job. And the third one is where you go up to Barry, go to the fireplace, inspect the blood, and then you make your way back around the dining room. Hence, where the zombie then makes its way in the room.
See if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Let's just hope it's not Chris's.
Who is it?
You! Freeze! Get away from him, Jill! He's insane! What the hell?
We better report this to Wesker.
Next one is up for the office, when you grab the shotgun from the wall and you get trapped into the room, between two doors, and the crusher is coming down to crush you to death. And Barry comes along and saves you, which is one of the things. But have you ever tried to do it when the zombies are in the window? By the way, you have to get that one, the office trapdoor activated cutscene, is to get this next scene activated where Barry gives you a can of fizz with, in other words, acid grenades for your grenade launcher. That's if you got room, otherwise you can say goodbye to them.
Your escape route first. I've found
What?
a can of fizz. It's sure to yellow and mellow those things. It's yours. Hopefully you won't.
What about you?
Oh, don't worry. I like the buddy system we have here.
I see. Thanks. I'll take it.
See you later.
Ciao.
Have you ever tried to let dogs into the mansion main room? Or the hallway, as we like to call it. Or once the dog's in, they still don't deactivate the cutscene, so in a way, they're just going to be a nuisance through the whole way through when you Do you remember the scene where you go and see the research room where Barry would be? He will have a folder and he will present it to you somewhat, but you know he took something out of that folder, his name probably, or Wesker's name. But this is avoidable. You can actually avoid this cutscene if you were to go to the room at the same time. If you were to go to the room at the same time, around the 2 minute mark, it was 2 to 5 minutes, how long you got to save the guy, well, save Chris, that is, so. But if you go to the room at this time, you can avoid the cutscene, but after saving or killing him, or not helping him in this case, you can then get the cutscene back again later. So it's avoidable during a certain time. For obvious reasons, if you were to save him, here, give you the radio, but if he ends up dying, you end up finding the radio later in the hallway of the balcony area towards the 2 doors of Spencer office and the garden cemetery area.
Does it ever?
Huh? What's the star's radio doing here? Let's hope the thing still works. Let's hope the thing still works.
If you were to enter the trap zone during the time when the 3, 4, 5 zombies enter through the window and bathroom, then you have a very low chance of Barry helping you through the trap area. So unless you've got the broken gun, you're not really going to be able to take the non-broken gun that you can actually use. So unless you bring a broken gun for obvious reasons, because you can't escape the trap room, because Barry won't show up due to the zombies outside the room, so you can't really get that cutscene. Now for Rebecca Chambers, secondary costume, which is kind of refreshing in a way because she's stuck with the same old medical uniform, and seeing her in I'm gonna assume a cowboy or cowgirl uniform. This spruces up the environment, I suppose you can say. There's not a lot of soldiers or cowboys, cowgirls around here.
James! Gun! Ineffective! It's dead!
You can try the same thing with Chris Redfield in the same way on the dining room table where the zombie comes in, Redfield in the same way on the dining room table where the zombie comes in, but it doesn't really work. So the only time you can actually see the zombie is by going in the hallway and seeing the dead partner on the floor. So, I mean, I tried all ways. I grabbed the shield, I went to the door, I went down the hallway, but there's no way to avoid the zombie or to cut it from the scene, I suppose, or any alternatives in this sense. Right, these are unseen or cutscenes that I know about that it can be avoidable, and I will continue looking for more, I suppose. Thanks for watching, feel free to like, subscribe and shine. Game developers to credit you on doing all the hard work, completing all the game modes. We'll get to that in a minute. There's after clocking it once, you got to clock it 2 or 3 more times to get the costumes, which we'll get to in a second. But let's look at the thank you note, which is from Shinja Mikami, which is one of the main Resident Evil game developers. There you go. Well, I get that word so mixed up sometimes. And we're going to look at the unused art they have not used. Well, I give them credit. Some of it's not, I would say, a little bit overdue for such a game as horror as Resident Evil. I mean, if they dimmed it down a little bit, made it a little rusty on some of the costumes, it would have been, I would say, alright. And once completing all the modes, you do get all the characters unlocked. So it's kind of nice. You're gonna have to go through some hard mode, some easy mode to get this done. So in total, you get about 4 characters costumes for each one: Joe and Chris. For I think orange means invisible mode, and blue means real mode. Now the difference between the 2 different modes that you'd be doing after clocking it the first time is basically you have auto aim off, and enemies are invisible on 2 separate modes. Once you complete it the first time, you then load your cleared game for obvious reasons to get, once again, real survival or invisible enemy or enemy. And basically we'll get to right down into it on what you got to do into them. For the second mode, after completing it the first time, that is, you get real mode, real something, I believe, and basically that implies you can't auto aim, so you got to do the manual work yourself. As you can see, when you normally aim, you basically get right locked on to the enemy. But in this case, you have to do the work yourself, which is not as easy when it comes to the bosses. You're going to have to make sure you are quick, I suppose you can say. And for invisible enemy, basically it's not as hard. You don't lock on eye. Now when it comes to invisible mode, basically the zombies aren't as hard to deal with, but the bosses, you're gonna have to predict where these bosses is, or look really hard to where they're moving. Like the snake, or Lisa Trevor, who is also invisible in the chambers area where you gotta release her mother from the coffin. But basically, that's what invisible mode is. It's, you can put it on easy, I suppose. These are basically the unseen moments, well, depending on what route you're going about, basically. And once you clock it the first time, you can do it on any difficulty, really. It doesn't really matter. But when it comes to real survival, it then becomes hard automatically. So in a way, that's not too bad. And when it comes to invisible enemies, then they're not too easy or too hard to deal with either, but it's just the bosses, and you've got to make sure you got the weapons. And here's a quick tip on if you want to do the end when first in the tyrant. Basically, wait till like 40 seconds. You know, catch knocked over the mic for a sake. But when you get to the timer, basically wait to 40 seconds or something, and then at 30 seconds the rocket gets dropped. Easy peasy.